This is the Rood Screen at Christ Church, which you have seen in an earlier episode. It's made of English oak. It completes the church, providing a passage from west to east, from sin to love, from wickedness to goodness, and a life of blessedness in Holy Communion with God and with man. The screen was sent out from England in the 1920s. It does serve as a memorial to those who died in the Gallipoli campaign here in Turkey in the First World War, and we're celebrating 100 years of the end of the First World War very soon. It's decorated with pictures that were only painted in the 1990s. They took 10 years to prepare. The artist was Mungo McCosh, and it does complete a decades-long dream that they would be decorated. And here we will be looking at the saints who are depicted on the screen. The seraphim flank the main doors of the Rood Screen, and here you see one six-winged seraph from, they guard the presence of God. And we have the faces of various friends included with the seraphim here. There's another one over this side. And in the center of this whole vision of heaven, we have St. John the Baptist, who's wearing an Anatolian shepherd's cloak and holding a lamb symbolizing the Christ. And we have Mary the Theotokos, the one who bears God, and in her hands is God, holding a Turkish simit, which is a symbol of eternity, a circle. And then the two principal archangels either side of St. Gabriel with his beautiful blue wings and his lily, a symbol of purity, and St. Michael, who's always shown as a warrior defeating the devil, but he's dressed as a First World War soldier. And of course, instead of a bullet, we have the Rose of England in his rifle. In the background of this, you'll see the doors of this church, the porch of this church, which we're busy restoring at the moment. So doors lead into doors, which lead to paradise. And for Christians, Christ is the door. On the south side of the Rood Screen, we have the figure of Elijah, the prophet. He's considered the representative of the great Hebrew prophets. He was a very ascetic figure. And on one side of the screen we've Elijah, on the other side Moses, the law. But this is Elijah, and we use the face of an ordinand at the time, who's now a priest in the Church of England. You'll see behind him the city of Istanbul, and in our Rood Screen, Istanbul symbolizes the heavenly city. Now, in temporal terms, of course, it's not so heavenly, but in spiritual terms, it comes to represent the heavenly city, the New Jerusalem, which is very much a subject in Christian teaching. On the north side of the screen is Moses, the giver of the law. He had that mysterious trip up the mountain, Mount Sinai, encountered God and received the law written on stone. Very mysterious story. But here we portray Moses with the 10 Commandments, the basis of our moral life. The figure is a famous friend, a writer in Istanbul, Andrew Finkel. And again, you'll see the city in the background, the heavenly city, with ferries on the Bosphorus. We need ferries between here and heaven, of course. This is Saint Janani Luwum, the martyred Archbishop of Uganda. He was martyred by Idi Amin in the 1970s. He's much revered in the Anglican communion, of course, but in the whole church. St. Thomas Cranmer was also a martyr at the Reformation. He threw his hands into the fire that burnt him at the stake and confessed his sins, withdrew any things that he resented having confessed in his life. He's holding the primatial cross of England. And you'll see in the background Galata Bridge with various cars that belong to friends of the chaplaincy. Mary Sumner was the founder of the Mothers' Union in England, and she too is a much revered saint for the organization that she founded that still helps mothers worldwide. And she's handing the baby Constantine, who founded this city, to his mother, Saint Helena. And Saint Helena is holding the chapel at the consulate, which is dedicated to Saint Helena. And let me see, over here you've got the devil, this little red figure, and he's about to dive into the golden horn, giving up on his quest to cause evil. Along the panel, moving northwards, you've got Hagia Sophia, the Church of the Holy Wisdom in the city of Constantinople, Istanbul. And the current patriarch's face is used to represent his predecessor, Saint John Chrysostom. And the next one is a Bosphorus fisherman. And of course, Saint Andrew, the first called, is one of the great saints of this city, brought Christianity to this part of the world by tradition. So we represent Saint Andrew as a Bosphorus fisherman. Saint Thomas of India is represented holding a rabbit, who was a favorite pet here at the church. But Saint Thomas of India was, of course, the apostle who brought Christianity out to Asia. And he is the face of a Sri Lankan refugee who once lived here at the church. Here we've got St. Alban, the first martyr of the British Isles. And there is a city and cathedral dedicated to him in England. He was a Roman soldier who took the cloak of a priest to save the priest from being discovered, and pretended he was the priest and was executed by the Roman authorities. We have here Pope John the 23rd representing the figure in history of Gregory the Great. And Gregory the Great sent St. Augustine to Canterbury, and the whole Church of England's establishment is based on that mission. The figure of St. Augustine of Canterbury is our great St. Michael Ramsey. So these are the successors. And you'll see in their copes, St. Gregory the Great has the saints of the British Isles, St. Patrick, St. George, St. Andrew, St. David, and Michael Ramsey has the 4 Gospels in his mitre and scenes of the Gospel through his cope, because he wrote a very famous book, The Gospel in the Catholic Church. And farther along here, we have St. Columba, and the original face was a great friend of this church, now Chadwick. And behind him is our current church up on the hill in Pera. And the city below, you can see below this church is all represented here. And St. Columba is holding the church we have over in Chalcedon. Of course, there's a bit of confusion. Some wanted him to be called St. Cuthbert and some St. Coleman, but St. Columba. Anyway, we call him St. Columba. That's the saint he represents. And finally, before we get back to Moses, we have St. Hilda of Whitby. She was an outstanding saint in early English history by helping to unite the church around one calendar with the Europeans. So they dismissed their original Irish calendar, the Church of England, and established a calendar that was used mostly in Europe. She's represented holding flowers simply because the figure we used is Alice Carswell, and she is the artist Mungo McCosh's late wife, and she was a botanist and horticulturalist. So St. Hilda of Whitby holds the flowers for Alice Carswell. The panel is in memory of Alice, a much-loved friend. The doors of the Rood Screen are, of course, the centerpiece. They open out to the altar at the east end of the church. And they're very much a feature not only of English early churches and many 19th century churches, but they're also, of course, a feature of the Iconostasis in the Orthodox, the Eastern churches. So we're very happy to have what represents an original style of screen that leads eastwards to the altar, the focus of Christian worship, the holy table, where we continuously celebrate the Lord's Supper as a sign of his perpetual presence with us today.